Demetrius Andrade stops Luke Keeler in the 9th round, retains his WBO World Middleweight title. I thought it was a very sloppy performance by Andrade, to be honest with you. He was loading up and throwing big, wild shots, trying to take Luke Keeler out of there. He obviously had no respect for what was coming back at him. So he can get away with doing stuff like that against Keeler. But you don't want to get in bad habits. And it's not the first time that I've seen Andrade be this wild in a fight. It does tend to be against lower tier opposition, but nonetheless, Andrade was so focused on the knockout that he was forgetting his fundamentals a lot of the time. And sometimes in the heat of a battle, even against a top level operator, those bad habits can start showing up again. So for me, I know people say that if you're going to make mistakes, make them against lower tier opposition, not against the top guys. But against the lower tier opposition, there's actually less excuse for making mistakes because you're not under that kind of pressure. It's a fight where you should be able to take your time and, do things the correct way. Your technique shouldn't be breaking down. But as I say, Andrade really wanted the knockout. I know that people have accused him of being boring. He obviously has scored knockdowns in several of his recent fights, but failed to finish guys off. And I guess he wanted to make sure that didn't happen again here. He nearly had Keeler out of there early in the fight. He dropped him, I think, with the first punch. Keeler survived the first. Then in the second round, he dropped him even heavier with a left hand again, big left hand. But after that, the fight started to drag. Keeler was able to recover from the early knockdowns. I don't want to say he completely went into survival mode, but he was trying to manage his way through the fight. Let me just put it that way. Andrade stayed on him. Andrade wasn't just keeping it at long range and outboxing Keeler. He was actually roughing him up, pushing him back at times, fighting him on the inside, and just beating him in every department. He was beating him at long range. He was beating him on the inside. He looked the stronger man in there. I know Luke Keeler came in there hoping to apply pressure and bully Andrade, but Andrade looked the stronger to me and the more proficient on the inside. And Luke Keeler, he hung in there, he showed mental toughness and whatnot, but ultimately in the 9th round, Andrade got through the series of punches when Keeler was against the ropes. I think it was right towards the end of the 9th round, and the referee decided he'd seen enough. At the end of the day, Luke Keeler hadn't won a single round in the whole fight. So I can't really complain about the stoppage. I mean, you maybe could have let him go on, but for what? Do you know what I mean? It is what it is. Andrade marches on. Of course, after the fight, he called out Billy Joe Saunders and Jamal Charlo. And look, he even said that he's willing to fight Charlo on Showtime or Fox or whatever. You can't say fairer than that. So not only has his promoter Eddie Hearn made an offer to Charlo to fight on DAZN, but he's also perfectly happy to allow, Demetrius Andrade to go fight Charlo on their network. So what is Charlo waiting for? And the way that Andrade looked in this fight, look, he won every round. He dropped the guy twice. But from a technical point of view, he looked sloppy. Perhaps Jamal Charlo will see that and think, okay, maybe we should do that. Or maybe Al Heyman. Maybe it's not even Charlo. Maybe it's Al Heyman who needs to see sufficient weakness in Demetrius Andrade to then allow Charlo to take the fight. Maybe that's how the pecking order works. But either way, PBC need to get their act together in terms of delivering the fights the public want to see. We want to see Demetrius Andrade versus Jamal Charlo. May the best man win. There's no guarantee whatsoever that Demetrius Andrade will be victorious in that fight. I mean, particularly if they have it on a Fox show, under the Fox PBC, terms. Who knows what kind of officiating and what kind of ref they might have there, what kind of backstage antics they might play. Who knows? That could unsettle Andrade. And let's be real, Jamal Charlo's a very good fighter anyway. I mean, he could win legitimately without backstage antics, but the way boxing works is when you're on somebody else's show and it's a very high profile fight and they really don't want you to win, funny things go on behind the scenes. That's just the reality of boxing, unfortunately. So let's just get that fight done. Stop the excuses, PBC and PBC fanboys. Let's get the fight done. Let's see who the better fighter is between Andrade and Jamal Charlo. If that can't happen, and if PBC want to continue acting silly, then Demetrius Andrade is happy to step up to 168 and take on Billy Joe Saunders. And that's also a very good fight. I've always felt that Andrade would beat Saunders, but on this particular form right here, look, it wasn't a terrible performance or anything, but you can't be that sloppy. You can't get into them kind of bad habits. Against Selecki, he wasn't as sloppy as this because Selecki's a better fighter than Luke Keeler. But nonetheless, he did have his sloppy moments. And against a slickster like Billy Joe, you can't have sloppy moments because Billy Joe will capitalize on that. He will pick you off. Now, Billy Joe, even though I don't think he's quite as athletically gifted as Andrade, not as long, not as rangy, he isn't as sloppy. You don't often see Billy Joe winging the wild punches that Andrade was throwing in this fight. So, yeah, that's what I'll say about it. Andrade, very talented. I've always thought highly of him since very early on in his career. I mean, I remember there was a time when people were looking for the next Floyd Mayweather opponent. And I said that out of the guys who are around at the moment, one of them who I may actually pick over Mayweather is Demetrius Andrade. Of course, I was laughed out of town, but I always thought very highly of Andrade from a long time. But this right here definitely wasn't vintage Andrade, let's be real. He's going to need to be a lot more slick and polished than that against the very, very top guys. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below about Andrade's performance, calling out Jamal Charlo, Billy Joe Saunders, how you think he'd get along against either of those. As WBO middleweight champion, this was his, third defense now, because he won the vacant belt against Katan Dokwa here. For Akovov, somebody who gave Billy Joe a lot of trouble, actually. Akovov, Selecki, who had a good fight with Danny Jacobs, and truth be told, Andrade did a better job on Selecki than Jacobs did, because you can see the scorecards there very wide in favor of Andrade. And Luke Keeler, definitely the poorest opponent, I would say, that Andrade has fought so far as WBO world middleweight champion. Hopefully they find someone 10 levels above Luke Keeler for the next fight, even if it isn't Saunders or Jamal Charlo, because you do have other guys out there. You've got Derevenchenko is a possibility for Demetrius Andrade. Derevenchenko is promoted by Lou DiBella, who now works on DAZN and with Eddie Hearn and all that kind of stuff. So maybe that's a fight they could make. Yeah, I think it would be great, to be honest with you, because Derevenchenko looks like he's in the prime of his career at the moment, coming off a very, very respectable performance against Gennady Golovkin. A lot of people think he should have got the decision in that fight. So if Andrade can go in there against Derevenchenko and, let's say, do a better job than Golovkin, again, it raises his profile. So any of these fights are a step in the right direction for Demetrius Andrade. I know he wants to jump the queue and get straight in there against Canelo, or straight in there against Triple G, or straight in there against the Charlo. I know he wants to do that. And really and truly, as a belt holder, he should be able to do that. But if he can't, then there are intermediary steps he can take instead, which, if he overcomes these particular opponents, it will raise his profile just that little bit to make the bigger fights a bit easier to make. Because once you become a commodity yourself, a cash cow yourself, the fights are usually, not always, but usually a bit easier, because there's more financial incentive for people to want to fight you. I mean, with that being said, the offer that reportedly went to Charlo to fight Andrade was something like $7 million. For middleweights who are not big cash cow superstars, that sounds like quite a lot of money to me. Eddie Hearn said he may revise the Charlo offer and actually offer him more, but it's a negotiation. When you're trying to make a fight, you don't give them your best offer first. That's not the way negotiations normally work, unless you're on a tight schedule and maybe you need a late replacement opponent. Then you might give them your best offer first. But when you've got plenty of time to negotiate, you don't come in with your best offer first. You start low and they start high, and you meet somewhere in the middle. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. It's happening. I'm out. Join me on Patreon. I upload a minimum of 2 podcasts every single week, covering a wide variety of controversial topics, as well as live stream Q&A sessions. Take a look on screen right now at some of the podcasts I've produced so far. For just $3 a month, the equivalent of about £2 a month, you get access to all my new podcasts and my entire back catalogue of past podcasts, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen on your computer or on your smartphone or tablet by downloading the Patreon app from the Google Play Store or the App Store for free. The Patreon app also allows you to download each podcast in MP3. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you get access to dozens of hours of exclusive content. It's easy to sign up, there's no contract, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.